And welcome back to yet another Serum bass tutorial. This one is a fast-paced ripper. This particular one is from my Serum bass pack encoder, and it is called Paste. And let's get into it. First off, obviously sub oscillator. Down 2 octaves. Triangle. First oscillator wavetable is going to be under analog. It is the MCB Basic. Oscillator B is under analog. It is acid. But this is going to be a modulation source, so we don't need this volume, so you can go ahead and turn that off there. No randomization for both. And lastly, for filter is going to be a phase plus 12. You can find that under flanges, phase plus 12. Nice little notch there. Oscillator A is also going to be down -2. Oscillator B is going to be up 1. We'll muck around with this later because you can get some mad variations with this just by tweaking this. But of course, like I mentioned before, it is a modulation source. So for the modulation for A, FM from B. A little hint at what's to come. Let's tweak these parameters on the filter. Like so. Couple of tweaks. Start that there. So for this one, I'm going to get all the basics out of the way, like the oscillators and the LFO shapes and the effects, and then all the mappings for the modulations, because this is quite a moving sound. We'll sort that out after. Let's jump on into the effects. Hyperdimension expander, obviously, rate is going to be cranked all the way, and then mix is going to be dropped down. We will modulate that. A little bit of a size and mix on dimension. Phaser is next. Rate all the way down, depth, frequency, and mix, we will LFO that later. Chorus, just leave that, mix all the way down, modulating that later. And OTT, obviously, we're not going to modulate this later, we're going to use it now. Crank that, we are redlining a little bit. There we go. Distortion is coming up next. We'll drag that under multiband. We are going to automate that later, don't you worry. So we'll have the drive down at 0 for the time being. And then lastly, EQ, peak filters, a little bit of gain reduction, and gain bump there. And guess what? We will be modulating that later with LFOs. Speaking of LFOs, let's go ahead and create some shapes. First one is going to be triggered triplets, and then quarter note triplet. This shape right here. Nice and easy. LFO2 shape is going to be kind of similar. We'll add in another point here. So it's kind of like a ramp up, ramp down. Also going to be triggered and triplets. So LFO3 is going to dictate the speed of the first 2 LFOs. Yes, you can map an LFO to an LFO. It's kind of cool. So we're just going to have a simple kind of little bump at the start. This is where our speed is going to be faster at the beginning, and then it'll drop down to a normal kind of pace after that. But for the meantime, I'm going to change this from triggered and then half a bar. But yeah, we'll definitely come back to that and tweak that later on. The only thing we need to tweak with LFO4 is just change it to half a bar. And of course, you can't access LFO5 until you've mapped out LFO4. So we'll go ahead and map LFO4. Click hold, drag this on the cutoff for our filter. We'll adjust that later. Drag it onto our phaser as well, up until like the halfway point. And now that we have access to LFO5, this is going to be half a bar. And this very unusual ramp up kind of sound. This is kind of funky, but this is only going to be mapped to one thing, and that is the mix of the chorus. And it's super, super, super subtle. Alright, and for this main page, LFO1 is going to have 3 mappings. One is going to be set to the wavetable position. One is going to be on FM from B. Starting to get a bit more of our sound here. Good old FM. Anyway, and the last one is going to be resonance on the filter. And the other 2 mappings will be under the effects section. One is going to be on the mix of our hyper. And the other is going to be on one of the peaks for our EQ. On to LFO2. This LFO will be like the volume control for our overall preset. So we're going to strip level down for oscillator A. Drag that. And we're also going to do the same thing for the sub, but there's going to be a lot of sub, like the whole thing. And into the effects, this LFO is going to go into drive because it's missing our main meat of the sound. Good old distortion. And this is going to go on the second peak for our EQ. All that's missing is LFO 3 now, and then some tweaks after that. There's only 2 mappings for this LFO, and that is LFO 1 and 2. If you don't know how to do that, go into LFO 1, click on the thing you want to modulate, right click, mod source, LFO 3. Do that for the same on 2. Right click, mod source, LFO 3. We're kind of getting that sound now. Just need to fine tune everything. So if we head over to the matrix, and then we can tweak our LFO mappings here. So, and particularly the LFO 3 ones where it goes to our other LFOs. That's sounding better, but we still need the absolute screech element to it. So octave on the second oscillator. Sounding a bit more like our sound. Still need some absolute grit to it, so go ahead and tweak some effects. That is... I think we've still got too much distortion, like... There we go, I think that's a bit cleaner. I was cranking it before, too much. Sick. Anyway, that is that. If you did want to pick up this preset and many more, link will be in the description to the Serum pack encoder, and I'll see you next time. Peace!